My husband looked the judge straight in the eye. Your Honor, my wife spent 15 years learning how to survive in places most people couldn't imagine. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm saying I don't know if she can give our daughter the stable life she needs. Beside him, his mother Evelyn gave me a faint smile. I felt my fingers tighten around each other, not because of what Garrett had said about me, because he had said our daughter, Lily, my 7-year-old, was the reason I had survived 15 years of deployments, long nights, and everything I had refused to talk about afterward. And now Garrett wanted the judge to believe that the mother, who had spent years protecting Lily from a distance, was the one putting her at risk. I sat there in my dress uniform, trying not to let my face betray what was happening inside me. The judge glanced briefly at the medals pinned across my chest. Garrett's attorney continued, my client believes Mrs. Vance's prolonged absences have made it impossible for her to provide Lily with the stability she needs. For a moment, I almost smiled. Not because this was funny, because Garrett had no idea how carefully I had learned to hide things. 3 weeks earlier, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I came home from a 3-day logistics conference and noticed something strange. Lily wasn't waiting by the door. She always did. I called her name. Nothing. I walked into the living room and found Garrett sitting beside Evelyn. A lawyer I had never met was sitting across from them. A folder was waiting on the coffee table. Garrett stood. Diana, we need to talk. I looked past him. Where's Lily? Upstairs. Why isn't she coming down? Garrett hesitated. Just for a second. Then he slid the folder toward me. Please sit. I opened it. Divorce papers. My eyes moved down the page. Full custody of Lily, exclusive use of our house, and control over the trust established for her future. Garrett wasn't simply asking for a divorce. He was asking for control. I looked at him. When did you prepare this? His expression softened. I've been worried about you for a long time. That answer hurt more than I expected. For one terrible second, I wondered if maybe everyone really did see something broken in me that I couldn't. Then Evelyn placed another document beside the divorce papers. Sign now, she said quietly, before this becomes uglier. I stared at the signature page. I had thought I was simply becoming suspicious of my husband. Then I found a payment in his business records. The recipient wasn't a company. It was a person, and I recognized the name immediately. He had never been supposed to know mine, but somehow he did. I knew that name. Marcus Hale. I hadn't heard that name in 15 years. The last time I saw it, it was buried inside a classified military investigation. 18,500. The transfer had come from Garrett's consulting company and gone directly into Marcus Hale's private account. Garrett was upstairs with Lily. The next morning, I asked casually, Garrett, who's Marcus Hale? His hand stopped halfway to his coffee cup. Then he smiled. Why? I saw his name in one of the company records. His expression tightened. You've been looking through my business files? I was looking for a tax document. He leaned back. Marcus is a consultant. That's all. Why did the company pay him $18,000? Garrett stared at me. Diana, you wouldn't understand the business. I nodded. Okay. I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled every public record I could find on Marcus Hale. Then I compared them with the business records Garrett had left on his office computer. 3 payments became 7. 7 became 14. But the same pattern remained. Money left Garrett's companies and eventually moved through accounts connected to Marcus. I called Paul, the attorney who had been helping me prepare for the divorce. He studied the documents. Where did you get these? Garrett's records. Does he know you have copies? No. Keep it that way. He enlarged one transaction, one of the accounts receiving. The money is connected to the trust established for Lily. My stomach tightened. I stared at the screen. Garrett wasn't only trying to win custody. He was trying to gain control over money. That was supposed to belong to our daughter's future. But why was Marcus involved? That night, I returned home earlier than expected. Garrett's office door was slightly open. I heard his voice. She's starting to ask questions? I stopped. Another man answered through the phone. Then you need to move faster. Garrett lowered his voice. What about the old file? A long pause. Then Marcus spoke. If she connects that old file to what happened overseas, we're finished. I froze. The memories I had buried beneath years of discipline were still there. But suddenly, I wondered if I had misunderstood what that mission had really been about. Marcus Hale didn't just know my name. He knew something about my past. Garrett had been paying him. And suddenly, I had a question that frightened me more than the divorce ever could. What was in that old file? The next morning, I called Colonel Miller. I didn't tell him everything. I need access to the Hale investigation. There was silence. Diana, that file was sealed 15 years ago. I know. You shouldn't be asking about it. Then tell me why. He exhaled. Because people were hurt the last time someone asked the wrong questions. My grip tightened. What happened during Operation Meridian? Your unit was briefed that the operation was about recovering stolen government funds. That's what we were told. Yes, but was that the whole truth? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Minutes later, a scanned page from the archive appeared on my screen. At the top was the classification stamp. Beneath it was the operation number, Meridian 17. I read the first paragraph, then stopped. The mission hadn't begun because of financial fraud. The financial network had been a cover. The real objective was to identify a private network moving sensitive information through legitimate American companies. My pulse quickened. I kept reading. There was a list of names. Most meant nothing. Then I saw one. Marcus Hale. His name appeared beside a designation I recognized. External asset, restricted contact. Marcus had been connected to my military investigation 15 years ago. Then I saw another name. Garrett Vance. My husband. The file listed him as a civilian financial intermediary whose information had assisted the operation. I stared at the screen. Garrett had helped my unit, but his identity had been compartmentalized from my briefings. I had known the financial network, but not every civilian source behind it. I had never known it was him, until now. I called Colonel Miller again. Diana closed the file. Why? Because you're looking at a version I don't trust. My heart began pounding. What does that mean? Someone accessed the archive after the operation? Who? I don't know. I looked at Garrett's name. When? Miller paused. Recently? My stomach dropped. How recently? Within the last month. The divorce papers were sitting on my desk. Garrett had filed them 3 weeks earlier. I stared at the screen. Someone had accessed a classified file 15 years after Operation Meridian and almost immediately before. Garrett tried to take Lily and control her trust. Suddenly, the divorce didn't feel like the beginning of the story. It felt like the final move in something that had started 15 years ago. Marcus had been an external asset. Garrett had been a civilian intermediary. And someone had recently gone back into the archive to alter something connected to both of them. I just didn't know what had been changed, or why someone had gone to such lengths to keep it hidden. I called Colonel Miller one more time. There has to be another copy of the Meridian file. He was silent for several seconds. There is. Where? Federal Archives. But Diana, if someone altered the digital record, the original may still be sealed. I need it. 3 hours later, a second file appeared on my screen. This one was older. Handwritten notes, original signatures, and one document that made my hands go cold. It was a financial transfer authorization from Operation Meridian. The recipient account belonged to a company controlled by Marcus Hale. The money had been placed there as part of an undercover operation. Garrett had helped create the account. Then I saw the final page. Marcus had disappeared with a portion of the funds. Garrett had covered it up. My husband hadn't been an innocent civilian intermediary. He had betrayed the operation, and 15 years later, he had found a way to profit from the same secret. Suddenly, everything connected. The payments to Marcus weren't about ordinary business. They were payments for silence, and Lily's trust wasn't simply an asset Garrett wanted. Part of it was invested in companies that had unknowingly become connected to Marcus's financial network. If Garrett gained control of Lily's trust, he could move those assets without immediately exposing the connection. The divorce wasn't about custody, it was about control. I took everything to Paul. He stared at the documents. Diana, this changes the entire case. Then let's make sure the judge sees it. 2 days later, we returned to court. Garrett looked confident. His attorney repeated the same accusations about my military history and emotional stability. But this time I wasn't alone. Paul placed the original Meridian documents before the judge. Then he placed the payment records beside them. The judge read silently. His expression changed. Finally, he looked at Garrett. Mr. Vance, do you know Marcus Hale? Garrett froze. His attorney immediately stood. My client has no comment. The judge's voice hardened. That wasn't my question. Garrett swallowed. Yes. The courtroom went completely silent. Paul placed one final document on the table. It was a recent transfer from Garrett's account to Marcus, dated 9 days before the divorce petition. The judge looked at the date, then at Garrett. You were paying him while preparing this custody case? Garrett opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His attorney leaned toward him and whispered urgently, But it was too late. The judge turned toward me. Mrs. Vance, custody of Lily remains with you. A wave of relief hit me so hard that I had to steady my hands beneath the table. Then the judge looked back at Garrett. These financial records will be referred to federal investigators. For the first time, Garrett looked genuinely afraid. He hadn't expected my silence to become evidence. He had spent 15 years using my past against me. He never imagined that same past would become the reason I saved my daughter. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Revenge Diaries for more stories of betrayal, justice, and revenge. Turn on notifications for the next one.